Interscholastic sports made its humble beginnings in New York City in 1903 with the formation of the Public Schools Athletic League. Today, 50% of students in the United States report that they are involved in interscholastic sports or school-sponsored events. Interscholastic sports have a profound positive effect on urban youth because it encourages a safe learning environment within a school, social growth, inclusion, and academic success. So here are some problems facing cities: violence, low graduation rates, and poverty. Violence in cities is far too common. If you look at the image, you can see cities are a hotbed for violence. New York City, Baltimore, Chicago, New Orleans are just some of the cities to mention when looking at that picture. Low graduation rates are far too common in cities as well. The average graduation rates from high school in the United States is 81.4%, but in cities across the country, you can see it is significantly lower. In New York City's District 7, the graduation rate is 24.5%. In Louisiana's District 2, the graduation rate is 29.1%. In California's District 31, the graduation rate is 36%. Along with violence and low graduation rates, cities across the U.S. are also experiencing poverty. Some of the poorest places in the U.S. are cities, and some of which you may not expect. Cities like Louisville, Boston, Indianapolis, and Baltimore. Interscholastic sports create better learning environments. Out of 89,000 6th to 12th graders studied, only 35% reported having basic relationships with their faculty and staff, and only 22% thought they had a caring learning environment and had higher expectations of staff. This shows a general disconnect between faculty and students that could be aided by a stronger participation in interscholastic sports. Interscholastic sports are proven to help students academically by, but not limited to, creating greater structure. Interscholastic sports help also to reduce absenteeism by lowering obesity, which has been connected with absenteeism. It also helps connect students to their peers, which makes school less dreaded for the students. Dropout rates of those who participated in interscholastic sports are also lower than non-athletes. This is because the student is more engaged in his or her school culture and environment, which gives them a sense of school pride and spirit. Schools with more interscholastic sport participation also have less disturbances. In Montgomery County, violence in school has gone down 11% since expanding its interscholastic sport program. This is probably due to the fact that now more students are participating, and everyone has a greater sense of community. This means that there is a smaller wall between the in-group, the athletes, and the out-group, the non-athletes, which allows for a safer place to learn. This is how interscholastic sports improve cognitive function. I'm not going to read all these, but you can look at them. Interscholastic sports' effect on social development. Sports help create relationships between students and faculty. This relationship is crucial because it gives the youth a positive role model as well as someone to talk to. It can also help students in the classroom. Many schools hire teachers as coaches. This allows for a stronger relationship with teachers, which helps students stay engaged. Double goal coaching. Double goal coaching is when a coach puts heavier emphasis on fun, safety, improvement, and student development over winning. This is important for a coach as it role models good values over just winning. Even with this importance, though, we aren't doing much in aiding in having better coaches hired or training for coaches. Only 5% of 15-year-olds reported having a coach that gets them, or as a role model or a mentor. Less than 10% of high school coaches have any training, and 1/3 of student athletes quit due to the fact that they didn't like their coach or weren't having any fun. These stats pose an issue that needs to be addressed. Having a good coach can be a keystone in creating a successful youth, yet we don't do all we can to make sure it happens. We need to train our coaches so they can further help in molding the highly plastic brains of the youth. The coaches need to be taught about the 5 essential actions to be expressed, meaning they need to express care, provide support, challenge growth, share power, and expand possibilities. Sports connects kids with like-minded individuals, which lets friendships blossom. It puts kids with other kids who like the same things, and it gives them something to do together. I played lacrosse for 12 years with someone I probably wouldn't have met without sports. Now I'm happy to call him my best friend, and we're close to brothers. Having friends that participate in sports greatly affect the participation in sports. Sports aids in connecting communities by giving an entire town something, the team, to get behind. This means people are going to games and interacting with one another, bringing towns and cities together. It creates a social place for people. Sports builds confidence in youth as well, which makes them more apt to take on challenging activities, which in turn help them learn and grow their human capital. Research indicates that involvement in sports increases the student's sense of their own popularity. This shows sports gives athletes a sense of pride and belonging, which will likely lead to having higher aspirations. Interscholastic sports aid in a successful future. By having friends and teachers involved in sport, we can expect to see more college aspirations. This is due to the competitiveness sports instill. Friends compete to see who can get into the best schools and help challenge you to achieve more. High school athletes are more likely to consider and actually attend college than their non-athlete peers, and are more likely to score higher on standardized testing, earn higher wages, and have better relationships with peers and faculty. Academic eligibility also helps with creating a successful student athlete. By enacting a no pass, no play policy, student athletes are forced to let sports move to the back burner as they focus their studies so that they can meet the minimum GPA requirements in play. Interscholastic sports inclusion. There's a need for a no-cut policy to be instituted because it makes sports seem like it's only for the talented, but really everyone can and should benefit from it. It gets rid of the whole in-group and out-group controversies. Title IX. Title IX was passed in 1978, and it expanded sports to women through equal funding for men's and women's teams. Girls' involvement in interscholastic sports went from 300,000 participants to 2 million. Intramural sports versus interscholastic sports. Intramural sports has a larger participation due to its vast availability. It would make for a better youth if interscholastic sports had a greater participation because intramural sports aren't affiliated with the school, which negates most of the positive effects. It also alienates intramural sport participants from the school environment. In conclusion, interscholastic sports have a huge impact on student athletes and should be made more readily available. There needs to be a greater focus on training coaches, and lastly, there needs to be a greater participation in interscholastic sports.